with you all the way from my hometown of Clearwater, Florida. Florida is the Sunshine State, but the last 10 days of my life have been prepping, planning, under mandatory evacuation in preparation for Hurricane Irma. But I am so thankful to say that all of my loved ones in the state are safe, and not even a hurricane can stop me from delivering my message today. People start to heal the moment they feel heard. I am so grateful. My voice is heard as an advocate in my hometown, where I work for an organization called Hands Across the Bay. I am so thankful my name and story has been heard in headlines across the world. But in this moment right now, I am truly so humbled and grateful to be personally invited by Safe Haven Ministries to share my story and raise awareness about the epidemic of domestic violence in our country. Although my story has been shared across the world, I am very excited to say that this is only my second time ever traveling out of state to share my message. So thank you, Safe Haven, for having me today. Over the next few minutes, we're first going to look at what domestic violence is, and then I'm going to talk about my personal experience of overcoming this horrific abuse. Finally, I'm going to explain the devastating impact domestic violence has on individuals across the country. But most importantly of all, I hope to inspire you today. And I hope to illustrate how you can join us and help bring an end to this dark and hidden, but completely preventable issue of domestic violence. About 5.5 years ago, in January 2012, I survived a horrific knife attack at the hands of my ex-boyfriend. It was only 2 weeks after my 20th birthday. I was stabbed 32 times total. 19 of them were my head, neck, and face, and the rest were my arms and hands in my defense when I fought while fighting for my life. I thank God every day that I am not another forgotten statistic, and I'm truly grateful for the chance to share my testimony. We're going to start by looking at what domestic violence is all about. And growing up, I was very smart. I got really good grades in high school. I graduated with a 4.0, 4.7 GPA. But the lesson I never received was that about dating or domestic violence. I do not blame anyone but my attacker for what happened, but hindsight is 20/20 and knowledge is power. We know that teens need this education to know the warning signs and how to properly navigate a breakup and all the emotions they're feeling if they've never been through this before. My school didn't have Safe Haven's life-changing program that you learned about in the video before lunch come into my school and teach me about the warning signs, the cycle, or how much help is available. I would never want to go through what I went through again, but with where I am today, I wouldn't change it, because I feel God saved me to be the voice needed to deliver this message to you today. He carried me when I could no longer stand. God gave me a voice when mine fell faint, and piece by piece, He has restored my life. I stand here before you now as a thriver on a mission. Not only will I survive, but I will thrive and encourage others to join me. A scripture verse that kind of encompasses how I feel about what happened can be found in Genesis 50:20. It reads, "You intended to harm me, but God intended for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." I'm on a mission to educate, and I'm going to start by breaking down some myths of domestic violence. Domestic violence does not discriminate. It can happen to individuals of any race, religion, culture, age, or social background. Domestic violence doesn't care if you're rich or poor. Domestic violence doesn't care if you're educated or not at all. Victims of abuse can be doctors, lawyers, but also high school dropouts or stay-at-home moms. Domestic violence didn't care that I was a 20-year-old college student with a full life ahead of me when I was called over and over in the middle of the night and manipulated into meeting my ex-boyfriend to have closure and one last hug from our relationship that just ended. Our relationship was 2 years, and it ended 3 months prior to this unexpected phone call, as you learned about. I ended the relationship because of ongoing verbal, emotional, and escalating physical abuse. And I want to share my personal experience to show you how can high school love spiral out of control on such a dangerous and deadly path. How can this happen? So I want to just take you back a little bit about the dynamics of our relationship. When I met him, I was 17 years old, and we went to the same high school. When we started dating, it was your normal high school relationship. He was very sweet, charming, funny. He was known for his uniqueness of having two different colored eyes, blue eye and brown eye. And as I said, it was a regular high school relationship. We hung out every moment we could, and we were texting every moment we couldn't. And looking back, I noticed that our relationship really started to change when I began to apply for colleges and prepare to graduate and move on. I received scholarships, and he became so jealous of this. He belittled my accomplishments, he would call me names, and created tensions and problems about me going off to university. He did not want me to succeed ahead of him in any way. So of course, I tried to leave. I don't want my boyfriend treating me like this or telling me, calling me bad words and names. But this is when he began to threaten suicide. And he said that as his girlfriend, I should be helping him, not abandoning him during this time of need. So I stayed, naive teenager. I agreed to try to get him mental health counseling, and he actually got involved in my church. And he also wasn't like this all the time. He was very sorry if anything was to happen or if he was to do anything. And since I was completely uneducated about the cycle of abuse and the dangerous warning signs, I confused this emotional and verbal abuse with him just being a jerk, because this is how guys are. I also thought this behavior was normal, because I grew up in a home, unfortunately, where fighting, yelling, arguing was a regular occurrence between my father and my brother. This ultimately led to my family unit kind of falling apart and my parents' divorce. So I did not have an example growing up of a healthy relationship or what real love is. And so it comes down to really I just didn't understand my value or my own worth. The relationship turned physically violent in the last 6 months on several occasions. It started with a push, but it ended with his hands tightly wrapped around my throat. And again, why would I keep quiet about this? It's because after he would harm me, he not only would threaten suicide, he now began to attempt suicide. He would either take pills or self-harm in front of me until I was hysterically begging and pleading for him to stop. He'd also have control of my keys and my phone, so I always felt he was like 2 steps ahead. So no matter what, I couldn't get away, couldn't get help. And he told me if I would not calm down of being hysterical or crying at that moment, if my family was to walk in, he would murder all of us. And at this time, I was a strong, smart, young, independent girl, but I was walking on eggshells, and I was hiding in silence and fear. There was only one way to describe how I felt in this relationship, and that is completely trapped. I was trapped in this relationship for nearly 2 years before I was able to break my silence, run away, call 911, and end the relationship with the help of the police. This happened 3 months before the attack. I thought I was free, but my nightmare was just beginning. What I didn't know at the time is that the period of time after leaving an abusive relationship is extremely dangerous and volatile. It is also when a majority of murders occur. When somebody feels they have lost everything, they are capable of anything. And in an abusive relationship, that person becomes their only focus of the abuser. And so when you break that control, that is usually when violence escalates to the next level or homicidal. It's so important to spread the message that if you have been harmed or abused or belittled in any way, you do not owe them face-to-face closure. You do not owe them face-to-face breakup, face-to-face apology. It's just not safe. And every day in our country, 3 women, at least 3 women are murdered at the hands of their boyfriend or husband. And women in abusive relationships are 500 times more at risk when they leave. Abusive relationships are all about gaining and maintaining power and control from the other partner. Not alcohol usage cannot make somebody abuse, and negative childhood experiences cannot make somebody abuse. It is strictly the need for power and control. And when when a woman leaves, that power is broken, and that's why it often goes to homicidal. So it's just so important to please help us spread this message. And at this time, You know, I just turned 20 years old. I was a naive, broken young girl with no knowledge of domestic violence statistics. I didn't know that 1 in 3 teenagers, like myself, were also experiencing some form of abuse in their relationships. Right now, in our country, 1 in 3 teenagers are in some form of abuse in their relationships right now. I didn't know that national statistics say that every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is assaulted or beaten. Every 9 seconds, that equates to 10 million abuse victims annually. I just wish I knew I wasn't alone. My whole life changed with this phone call. It was January 24th, 2012. My ex went to court that morning for the battery charge from 3 months prior, and he decided that this was the night he would set out to kill me. But what he told me on this phone call, he said, after everything we've been through, can you just give me a hug? I will leave you alone forever and never bother you again. He stressed how badly we needed closure from the terrible end of our relationship. He said, I'm in your area. He was crying. He was pulling on my heartstrings, very manipulative, and doing all he could to convince me to meet him for a moment. I had an exam at 8:30 in my chemistry class, and I knew that he would not stop calling. I'd say, no, hang up, call me back. And I knew it would stop. So I said, okay, tell me when you're here. And I ignored one of the most important gifts God gave me, and God gave each and every one of you right now. I ignored my intuition. That little voice inside you said something right or wrong. God gave us this ability, the ability to sense danger. He gave us this for a reason, and I hope that you will always follow it. Ignoring my intuition that night turned out to be the greatest mistake of my life. I walked outside, and he was already next to his truck. He was around the corner, right in front of my mom's house. And when he saw me, he reached his arms around for the hug that he cried and begged for, but little did I know he already had the switchblade in his hand. Flipped it open, stabbed me right here in the back of my shoulder. Second one was on the back of my neck, and the third one was right here in the side of my face. And it wasn't even until the one hit the side of my face and my mouth filled with blood that I even knew what was going on. He used 2 knives and stabbed me 32 times total, all while my mother slept inside the house. Miraculously, God placed 2 angels in the park across the street from my mom's house. My angels are young and courageous, brave teenagers. These teenagers heard me screaming, and they ran over to intervene and successfully called 911 to dispatch first responders. I will spare you and myself from reliving all of the gruesome details of the attack, but I want to go over the severity of my injuries to really explain the depth of our God's miracles. I was stabbed 32 wounds total. As I said, 19 were my head, neck, and face, and the rest were my arms and hands in my defense. My skull was fractured, my nose was broken, my jaw was broken, 2 of my teeth were missing, my facial nerve was severed, I was given 12 units of blood, and I had my entire blood volume replaced twice. I also, due to the excessive amount of loss of blood, I suffered a stroke in my cerebellum, and they didn't think that I would ever be able to walk again without a cane. But God, as I said, has lots of miracles in my life. I also flatlined 4 times on the table. The trauma surgeon said that if I wasn't giving up, neither was he, and he worked for 3 hours to stabilize me and stop the bleeding. Rock bottom, where I fell, was a solid foundation upon which I rebuilt my life. I spent many weeks in the hospital and many months in outpatient therapy. I have had probably 10 surgeries to get where I am today. I had to learn how to walk again, talk again, use my hands, close my eyes, drive my car. I knew I had to get back to my job. I had to get back to school. I wanted so badly to be the Melissa I was before. But what I didn't know at the time is that when you go through something traumatic, it changes you. I couldn't change what happened. All I could do was accept it. I couldn't close my eyes and make all the scars disappear. I couldn't ignore the pending court case and the letters I was getting every single month. I could not ignore the media calling over and over again to get my story and the footage of me. You cannot change how others treat you or what they say about you. All you can change is how you react to it. And when something bad happens, you have three choices. You can let it define you, you can let it destroy you, or you can make the choice to rise above and let it strengthen you. I made the decision that this attack is one day in my life, and it will never define me. My mom always told me over and over again that God did not save me to live an angry or bitter life. And she read to me over and over Psalms 27 as I laid in the ICU connected to tubes, and I clung to every word. This scripture solidified everything for me. Though this monster did all he could to take my life, I will not fear, I will not be afraid, and I know I will make it through. Why? My heart is confident, knowing God is my almighty protector. And I felt him in these weeks and months following the attack. Sometimes I actually felt like God was holding me in his hands. I promise you that you can overcome any obstacle, as long as you don't lose hope and faith for better days. I promise pain and hard times are inevitable, but they are only temporary, and God never leaves you. If God brings you to it, he will bring you through it. The court case, that was also another grueling journey that I at one point didn't think I would get through. But in October of 2013, I'm pleased to let you all know that this monster, Robert Lee Burton Jr., was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. The life sentence, that was a defining moment in my life. I could no longer silence my inner voice telling me I was safe for something different. So I knew it was time to let go of my plan and follow God's plan. I took a huge leap of faith and quit my job at the hospital where I worked, changed my school path, and I became a full-time advocate for an organization in Tampa Bay that helped me, called Hands Across the Bay. My abuser tried to bury me, but he didn't know I was a seed. I chose to grow from the dirt I was left in, and I would blossom wherever God leads me. At Hands Across the Bay, where I work now, we're a small organization with a passion also for prevention, awareness, and education for our youth. Because I wish I knew then what I know now, and I never want another woman to go through the same. Domestic violence is an epidemic in our country, and the work of Safe Haven Ministries and Hands Across the Bay goes hand in hand. Together, we are working tirelessly to shine a bright light to a dark and hidden but completely preventable issue. We both understand that education about dating violence is how we can stop the rising statistics, and I hope that everyone in attendance knows that continues to support Safe Haven services, and my story drives home the importance of your donations in support of these amazing services. Growing up, I never envisioned myself sharing my struggles to an audience. But as I said in the beginning, people start to heal the moment they feel heard. And there are 4 reasons I continue to speak out. First, I share my story to be a voice for victims who are hiding in silence and fear. Second, I share my story for my survivor sisters, for those who can share publicly and those who can't. Third, I share my story for those who are unaware and do not understand the damaging effects of domestic violence. For those who ask, why did she stay? Or what did she do? Something had to have made him so mad. For those who think she should just leave, I'm here to tell you it is never as simple as walking away. Women may stay because they're under full financial control. They might have fear that they'll lose custody of their children. Their religious beliefs may tell them that divorce is wrong and divorce is bad. They might think the abuse is normal because they grew up that way. The threat of violence or death is just too much and they cannot escape. Leaving an abusive relationship is terrifying, dangerous, unpredictable, and why donating to Safe Haven Ministries is vital for these families to be able to escape and create a safety plan to have a life of peace. Fourth, the most important reason of all. I share my story to be a voice for our angels who are forever silenced because their abusers succeeded in taking their life. I was so close to losing mine, and my promise to all mothers of murdered daughters, grandchildren, friends, is that I am carrying on their voice as I speak to you now and every time I speak in the school or on an interview on the TV. If you are currently being abused or something doesn't feel right with your partner, I beg you, I urge you to reach out to Safe Haven Ministries to safely end your relationship. I promise it will not get better, and you can only give so many chances before you must stand up for yourself and walk away. Everyone in this room and on this earth deserves a healthy, safe, nonviolent relationship. You should be with somebody who respects you, listens to you, loves you, and makes you feel safe. I know, and I understand, that not all men are this way. And in closing, there is a beautiful ending, or should I say new beginning, to my story that I'd like to share with you. In a twist of fate, this horrific night not only led me to find my purpose as an advocate, but it also led me to meet Cameron. He was a firefighter on my call. He is the firefighter that set up the landing zone for the helicopter and helped load me into it. We met 1 year after the attack when I was doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I was the keynote speaker for our local domestic violence center. And they invited the first responders there to surprise me so we could meet. A few days later, Cameron reached out and invited my mom and I to have dinner at the fire department so we could meet the whole crew. And the rest is history. Cameron and I got to talking, texting, laughing, dating, and on March 4th of this year, just 6 months ago, Cameron and I tied the knot. Because sometimes in the middle of ordinary life, love gives us a fairy tale. This is my real, true story that has been shared in headlines across the world in many different languages and countries. But we remain humble and grateful that God brought us together when the timing was right. He has shown me what it takes to make a healthy relationship work and what real love is. I share this good news to remind you that there is life and love after abuse, but you first must love yourself completely and heal before you can be loved by somebody else. Only God can turn a mess into a message. My mistakes and the experiences I've had have become lessons and teaching tools for others, and for that, I am forever thankful. Please let my story serve as a reminder to never give up in the face of adversity. With God, all things are possible. He can turn me into a victim, into a victory. I apologize. I would like to thank you so much for having me and listening to me so well. And I encourage you all that if you'd like to know more about my story, tonight at 9 o'clock on Investigative Discoveries, a brand new show that has not been on yet. It's called Kiss of Death at 9 o'clock on the Investigative Discovery channel. So I hope that you'll tune in. And remember, my name is Melissa Dohme. This is my story. Please don't let it be yours.